A new civilization emerged on the European continent during the Middle Ages. Key elements such as nobility and monarchy, religious doctrine and military conflicts, cultural development and intellectual pursuits alongside trade and technological advancements established the foundations of the modern era. This narrative chronicles the genesis of Europe. In the initial 2 centuries CE, the vast Roman Empire encompassed the Mediterranean basin, characterized by a period of stability, prosperity, and peace known as the Pax Romana. Citizens benefited from its flourishing culture, equitable quality of life, and relative security, all sustained by Rome's centralized governance and advanced infrastructure. Concurrently, a new religion, Christianity, originated in the remote eastern peripheries of the empire. Initially a minor Jewish sect, it gradually proliferated throughout the pagan Roman world. By the 4th century, it gained imperial endorsement, becoming the official state religion. However, by this juncture, Rome's era of grandeur had concluded. The empire contended with rampant inflation, widespread plagues, famine, and persistent invasions. Administering such a vast entity from a singular center proved increasingly untenable. Consequently, in 395 CE, the empire was bifurcated into a Western empire with Rome as its capital and an Eastern empire governed from Constantinople, also known as the Byzantine Empire. While the East prospered as an urban, affluent, and thriving region, the West remained largely rural, impoverished, and vulnerable, ultimately proving unsustainable. Beyond the imperial frontiers, in the dense forests, various barbarian peoples, predominantly Germanic tribes led by warlords and their loyal warrior retinues, commenced significant migrations. These groups exerted escalating pressure on the Rhine and Danube river boundaries. The Western Empire, facing limited alternatives, began permitting their entry. Eventually, the frontiers were decisively breached, facilitating the migration and settlement of diverse populations within the empire's borders. Whether entering as supplicants or invaders, these groups progressively fragmented Roman territory as imperial authority simultaneously waned. In 476 CE, Odoacer, a barbarian leader, deposed Romulus Augustulus, the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire. Although this child emperor wielded negligible actual power, his removal signifies a pivotal moment, the formal dissolution of the Western Roman Empire and the commencement of the period often termed the Dark Ages. The confluence of Roman legacies, Christian doctrine, and barbarian cultural influences constituted the foundational elements that converged to create medieval Europe. By approximately 500 CE, Europe was characterized by newly established kingdoms governed by barbarian monarchs. The elites of these kingdoms, a synthesis of Roman and barbarian elements, had progressively converted to Christianity. Among the most prominent were the Ostrogothic kingdom in Italy, the Visigothic kingdom in Spain, and the Frankish kingdom in Gaul. These nascent kingdoms, however, lacked critical components for effective state management. The great urban centers of antiquity became depopulated, with some left in ruins. The transportation network deteriorated, impeding communication and long-distance commerce. The disappearance of coinage disrupted economic systems essential for supporting professional armies. Literacy rates plummeted, severely compromising administrative capabilities. Most critically, the prevailing conditions of peace and security had vanished.
This impoverished rural Western region experienced increasing localization, leading to political and linguistic fragmentation. In the initial centuries of the Middle Ages, its development paled in comparison to its more robust neighbors. In the 6th century, Byzantine Emperor Justinian I endeavored to reconquer the West and restore the Roman Empire to its former glory. However, after successfully reclaiming Italy from the Romanized Ostrogoths, the peninsula subsequently succumbed to new invaders, the Lombards. The Byzantines were compelled to acknowledge the permanence of the East-West division. Soon, they confronted yet another geopolitical division between North and South. In the 7th century, Arab armies rapidly expanded across the Middle East and North Africa, establishing an immense Islamic caliphate. Where a singular civilization once flourished, 3 distinct entities now emerged: the Islamic, the Byzantine, and the medieval. For a brief period in the 8th century, it appeared that the fragile and vulnerable West might be overwhelmed by the caliphate. Muslim forces decisively defeated the Visigothic kingdom in Spain and subsequently conducted raids into Francia. However, in 732 CE, at the Battle of Tours, they were repelled by the Franks under the leadership of Charles Martel. This victory effectively halted Islamic expansion in the West, and the triumphant Charles lent his name to a dynasty, the Carolingians, which would profoundly alter European history. Charles Martel's son, Pepin the Short, ascended the Frankish throne through a coup. He engaged in military campaigns against the Lombards in Italy, ultimately securing for the Pope his highly desired autonomous state.
Pepin's son was the renowned Charlemagne. Following his ascension to the Frankish throne in 768, he devoted decades to military campaigns and territorial expansion. Ultimately, he exerted dominion over the majority of Western Christendom. In 800 CE, Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne Emperor of the Romans. More than 3 centuries after the fall of Rome, the West once again had an emperor. The Carolingian Empire represented the first major power of the medieval West, leaving an indelible legacy. Charlemagne fostered an intellectual and cultural flourishing, initiating the first of several medieval renaissances aimed at reviving the lost knowledge and culture of antiquity. The empire disseminated various political structures, institutions, titles, ranks, ideas, and aspirations throughout the West, most notably promoting the ideal of a unified Christian West. These elements formed the bedrock of medieval civilization. The Carolingian Empire proved short-lived. The ambition to establish centralized rule in the West was hindered by insufficient infrastructure, including small cities, a weak economy, limited bureaucracy, and poor communications. Following Charlemagne's death, his 3 grandsons engaged in internecine conflict, culminating in the Treaty of Verdun in 843, which divided the Frankish Empire among them. The Central Kingdom rapidly diminished, leaving only West Francia, which would eventually become France, and East Francia, the precursor to Germany. These kingdoms continued a process of fragmentation, a trend exacerbated by external pressures.
During the 9th and 10th centuries, a new wave of invaders assailed the disintegrating Carolingian world from all directions. The Vikings, originating from the north, traversed the coasts and rivers of Europe, engaging in raids and terrorizing the populace. The Magyars, better known as Hungarians, advanced from the east, plundering defenseless settlements. Finally, Muslim pirates and raiders conducted landings on Europe's southern shores. Europe found itself under siege. As the West crumbled under successive attacks, royal authority diminished, while local elites gained strength. Europe became covered by a dense network of wooden castles, serving as fortified residences for local noble families. From these strongholds, lords subjugated the peasants in their vicinity, extracting resources. Lords governed their territories through coercive force. In preceding centuries, peasants constituted an integral component of infantry armies. However, new military innovations, such as the stirrup, further solidified cavalry as a decisive military force. This new mode of warfare necessitated resources primarily accessible to the nobility. Consequently, European elites evolved into full-time professional warriors.
In a society dominated by a warrior aristocracy, territorial power was secured through vassalage. One noble granted another land and protection in exchange for loyalty and military service. Kingdoms developed into intricate networks of personal relationships and mutual obligations. Kings were often inherently weak, susceptible to being overshadowed by their powerful vassals. This system is commonly referred to as the feudal system. Several centuries would elapse before centralized states would re-emerge in the West. By the 10th century, a transformative shift began. Improved climatic conditions led to increased agricultural yields. External invasions ceased as Vikings and Hungarians settled and were assimilated into Western Christendom. And in certain regions, royal authority began to consolidate. In Britain, King Alfred the Great and his successors unified the disparate Anglo-Saxon realms, establishing the Kingdom of England for the first time. In West Francia, despite continued political fragmentation, Vikings who had settled in the north pledged fealty to the Frankish king. They adopted French Christianity and became known as the Normans. The Duchy of Normandy subsequently served as a buffer against further incursions. In East Francia, Otto I, styled King of the Germans, decisively defeated the Hungarians at the Battle of Lechfeld in 955, thereby terminating the invasions from the east. The settled Hungarians eventually established their own Christian kingdom. The victorious Otto the Great was crowned emperor in 962. Europe once again possessed an empire, this time a German one, later known as the Holy Roman Empire. After centuries of upheaval, Europe finally attained a period of stability and burgeoning confidence, poised for a new trajectory. The year 1000 marks a pivotal turning point in European history, inaugurating 3 centuries of sustained growth and prosperity. Improved climate, coupled with advancements in technology and agricultural techniques, precipitated an agricultural revolution. Europeans produced increased quantities of food, leading to substantial population growth. New villages and towns were established, and existing ones expanded. Throughout Europe, forests were cleared as more land was brought under cultivation. This period facilitated immense economic expansion and a commercial revival. Thriving trade networks fueled a massive urbanization process. Both old and new cities grew significantly, becoming international hubs for a nascent class of merchants. These merchants secured their independence from feudal landowners, forming self-governing cities, a trend most evident in Italy, where merchants revitalized Mediterranean trade. As the quality of life improved, art, architecture, and music flourished. Europe experienced increasing literacy rates, and the first universities were founded under the auspices of the Church.
European intellectuals initiated a new renaissance grounded in the rediscovery and revival of ancient knowledge. However, Europeans were not merely conquering internal frontiers, they were also expanding outwards.
During the Central Medieval period, aristocrats from the Carolingian heartland undertook the conquest and colonization of new territories, thereby extending the boundaries of Western Christendom. This process, often termed the Europeanization of Europe, resulted in an expanded and more culturally homogeneous civilization. In 1066, William the Conqueror, Duke of Normandy, invaded England. At the Battle of Hastings, he delivered a decisive blow to the Anglo-Saxons, transforming England into a Norman stronghold. In Iberia, the Christian kingdoms of the north engaged in sustained campaigns against the Muslim territories to their south, gradually extending their control over the peninsula. This endeavor was characterized as a reconquest. In southern Italy and Sicily, Norman warriors conquered vast territories from the Byzantines and Muslims. They forged an alliance with the Pope and established another Norman kingdom. In Eastern Europe, German aristocrats and peasants progressively migrated eastward, settling on Slavic lands. But Europeans directed their ambitions even further afield. In 1095, Pope Urban II exhorted Christian warriors to liberate Jerusalem and other holy sites from the control of Muslim infidels. Crusader armies converged on the east, establishing several states along the Mediterranean coast. These states, however, proved to be vulnerable Western outposts. Over the course of 2 centuries, they were successively reconquered by Muslim forces. Nevertheless, their existence conveyed a significant message. The Catholic Church had reasserted its influence.
In the early Middle Ages, the Pope held limited power and exerted little influence beyond Italy. The Church functioned as a loosely organized network of priests and monks, whose appointments and oversight were largely controlled by local aristocrats. During the 10th and 11th centuries, a reform movement emerged, dedicated to transforming both the church and society at large. The reformers advocated for freeing the church from the world, a movement to emancipate it from the influence of kings and nobles, and to restructure it as a papal monarchy. Pope Gregory VII, a fervent reformer, clashed with Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV over the authority to appoint bishops within the empire. The initial phase of this conflict culminated with Henry enduring 3 days in the snow outside a fortress at Canossa, seeking the Pope's absolution. The subsequent phase, however, concluded with Henry invading Rome and appointing his own pope, forcing Gregory into exile. While it initially appeared that the emperor had prevailed, by the 12th century it became evident that the papacy and the reform movement had triumphed. The church had evolved into a robust, centralized, hierarchical organization. Possessing elaborate administrative and legal systems and immense resources, its power extended across Europe. At the apex of this structure resided the Pope, governing the Church as an absolute monarch. As papal authority consolidated, kings observing this rise were prompted to emulate such power.
The authority of medieval kings was frequently constrained by the armed aristocracy. During the Central Medieval period, the number of aristocrats significantly increased, and castles proliferated, with timber structures progressively replaced by stone and designs becoming larger and more formidable. Aristocratic lifestyle and culture underwent refinement with the emergence of the Christian knight ideal and the code of conduct known as chivalry. Simultaneously, however, aristocrats in some regions faced the rise of more powerful kings and consolidated kingdoms. In England, The Anglo-Norman dynasty established a small and consolidated state, relatively free from the extensive feudal fragmentation prevalent on the continent. In Iberia, the reconquest of territory from the Muslims strengthened the Christian kings, facilitating the emergence of centralized states. In France, the Capetian dynasty gradually expanded its personal domains, enabling the formation of a functioning state there as well. Conversely, in the Holy Roman Empire, the opposite trajectory occurred. The once mighty empire disintegrated, forming a mosaic of autonomous principalities. Emperor Frederick Barbarossa attempted to restore the empire's former glory, but ultimately failed. The imperial title, now bestowed by electors, became largely symbolic. The central medieval period witnessed an agricultural revolution, widespread urbanization, territorial expansion, the consolidation of papal and royal power, and a vibrant cultural flourishing. However, around 1300, climatic conditions deteriorated, economic growth stagnated, and famine became prevalent. A profound calamity loomed.
The 14th century marks a significant watershed in European history. In 1347, a global plague, now identified as the Black Death, reached Europe. It rapidly disseminated across the continent, and within a few short years, eradicated approximately one-third of the population. This represented an unprecedented demographic catastrophe. Entire settlements were obliterated. Recurrent outbreaks of the plague would continue to afflict Europe for centuries. Despite these devastating events, Europe recovered during the 14th and 15th centuries. For many survivors, the consequences of the plague proved less dire.
Europe recovered
As the population
during the 14th and 15th
diminished,
centuries.
land became widely
For many
available,
survivors,
and
the
the demand
consequences
for
of the plague
labor
proved
experienced a significant escalation. This empowered the peasantry and working class, enabling them to demand enhanced conditions. Elite resistance frequently precipitated widespread insurrections throughout Europe. While largely subjected to brutal suppression, the trajectory of long-term
Elite
change
resistance
remained
frequently
irreversible.
precipitated widespread insurrections
Ultimately,
throughout Europe.
Western Europe
While
witnessed
largely
the
subjected to
accrual of
brutal
new
suppression,
freedoms
the trajectory
and
of
opportunities
long-term
for
change
peasants,
remained irreversible.
alongside elevated wages for laborers. Emerging from the shadow of the Great Plague, a period of profound innovation commenced. Technological advancements included the proliferation of wind and water mills, the invention of eyeglasses, novel methodologies in metal production and processing, and, most notably, the development of the printing press. Rapidly revitalizing urban centers fostered the flourishing of new cultural paradigms. Concurrently, Italy experienced a burgeoning Renaissance, characterized by an aspiration to revive and ultimately transcend the cultural accomplishments of classical Greece and Rome. Renaissance scholars articulated a nascent worldview, re-evaluating humanity's position within the cosmic order. They subsequently characterized the preceding millennium as the Dark Ages, thereby positioning their era as the pivotal transition between the medieval and modern periods.
The late 14th and 15th centuries witnessed a transformative shift in European warfare, driven by the advent of gunpowder. This innovation rendered even the most valorous knight vulnerable to distant infantry fire and enabled the breaching of previously impregnable fortifications through artillery. The logistical and financial demands of sustaining these nascent infantry and artillery forces proved substantial, a burden manageable primarily by monarchical authorities. In their pursuit of a centralized monopoly on coercive power within their domains, monarchs progressively consolidated their authority and diminished the traditional prerogatives of the aristocracy. Deprived of their erstwhile military preeminence, The nobility increasingly transitioned into roles as administrative functionaries and courtly advisors to their sovereigns. This period thus marked the nascent development of the sovereign state. Amidst this tumultuous epoch, Europe's evolving military technologies underwent continuous validation. The protracted 100 Years' War, conflict between England and France, exacted a severe toll on the French landscape. The conflict's trajectory was dramatically altered by Joan of Arc, a peasant figure who galvanized French forces against English encroachment. Ultimately, English forces were expelled from French territory. Concurrently, in the Iberian Peninsula, the dynastic union of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile culminated in the formation of a unified Spanish monarchy. Their amalgamated forces successfully subdued Granada, representing the final Muslim bastion on the peninsula.
These foundational developments laid the groundwork for the modern nation-states of England, France, and Spain. Conversely, other regions, exemplified by Germany and Italy, would not achieve comparable unification for several subsequent centuries. As the medieval era drew to a close, Europe had not merely recuperated from the demographic and societal crisis inflicted by the Black Plague, but had also reconstituted itself upon robust foundational structures. Concomitantly, its strategic focus progressively shifted outwards. By the year 1500, Portugal had successfully navigated the African coastline and the Indian Ocean, thereby establishing maritime trade routes to the Far East. Concurrently, Spain embarked on westward transatlantic voyages, culminating in the discovery of the Americas. Christopher Columbus's expedition in 1492 is frequently posited as the demarcation point between the conclusion of the Middle Ages and the commencement of the modern epoch. Over subsequent centuries, the trajectory of European expansion profoundly reshaped global dynamics, thereby establishing the foundations of the contemporary world.